Congratulations, true crime addicts. We've survived another week. It is Friday, January 31st, 2025. This week, a shooting at the Canadian border uncovers a secret cult. Police are on the hunt for another man pardoned by President Trump. And have we reached peak true crime? All this and more, stay tuned.
Yes, super excited. We are all pumped to have James Renner.
James Renner on.
That James Renner has zeroed in on.
James Renner once again drops a bombshell.
Investigative journalist, reporter, James Renner, who's been on the podcast a long time, friend of mine.
And we're back with more true crime this week with me, your host, James Renner. There's that James Renner bell. It's kind of like a Pavlov thing when I ring that, and I don't know that you're supposed to drool, but you're supposed to remember the show. And also every time a bell rings, a journalist gets his Pulitzer or something. I don't know. But welcome back to the show. This is True Crime This Week. At the top of the show, I want to mention again that I will be attending CrimeCon. That's a convention for true crime addicts. CrimeCon London in the UK this summer, June 7th and 8th. And if you're listening from across the pond and you want to go to CrimeCon, use my code. I've got a code. They gave me a code, Renner10, and that'll get you 10% off your tickets. So hope to see you at CrimeCon London. As always, I want to thank my buddy Walter for manning the camera. Walter is just back from his overtime shift at Lumen Industries. That should work out well, I think. Hey, before we start with the top stories this week, there's something I want to talk about. And that is the question, are we about to hit peak true crime? You know, when I started reporting on true crime about 20 years ago, that seems like a long time. And I didn't start when I was like 10 either. Starting to feel old. But when I started reporting on true crime 20 years ago, true crime was not popular. I remember I had an editor who told me I shouldn't be writing true crime because nobody reads it. I should be writing politics and features. I always kind of liked it. But ever since the release of the podcast Serial, it's been big business for many people. And for years, I've wondered when we might hit peak true crime and see this genre start to fade away again. I think we might be getting close. A slew of new true crime documentaries were announced this week that have me very nervous. And based on the response that I've seen online, I'm not the only one. First up is Netflix's announcement of a documentary about the murder of Gabby Petito, who was murdered in 2021 by her boyfriend Brian Laundrie. It's called American Murder, Gabby Petito, and it premieres February 17th. Now, this is a documentary that nobody asked for, about a case that has no mystery behind it anymore. The case itself is an example of the worst behavior by true crime fanatics online that I've seen recently. And I'm convinced that the only reason the case was so popular to begin with was the icky way that men fawned over Gabby and women lived vicariously through her story. The whole thing just felt really, really gross. And we really don't need to go back to it, but it's coming out. It's on Netflix. Then there was the announcement of Happy Face from Paramount Plus, which will tell the story of Melissa Moore, the daughter of serial killer Keith Jesperson. Moore wrote an autobiography and produced a podcast about what it's like to be the daughter of a serial killer. Happy Face is being called a docuseries, but it's actually a fictionalized, or at least narrative, adaptation of the story featuring actor Dennis Quaid as Jesperson and Broadway actress Annalee Ashford as Moore. The whole thing is very glossy, and if the trailer is any indication, Quaid plays this part way over the top and very campy. Ashford also seems strangely out of place and miscast in this role. It looks like a silly thriller that you'd see from like A24 or something in the movie theater, but instead this is a terribly true story. Finally, an independent movie called Zodiac Killer Project premiered at the Sundance Film Festival this week. Now, it's a movie about how the director failed to secure the rights to a book about the Zodiac and how he tries to complete the project anyway. But really, it's a smart commentary on the epidemic of true crime documentaries and how they've all come to look the same, and how executives are churning them out because they're cheap and they continue to make money. Now, while I agree with this last film, it's also a sure sign that we're reaching the end of this true crime phenomenon, because in all forms of art, there are movements and genres that appear. They're very popular for a while, but eventually they start to deconstruct themselves and everything becomes a parody of what it was when it started. We are entering that phase right now, absolutely, with these last few releases. It's the canary in the coal mine taking its last breath. But don't worry. I will be here broadcasting from the sinking ship until it's finally dead for good, and then probably a little bit longer. Let's get to the top stories. There's some crazy stories this week in the world of true crime. Here we go. Now, for this first story, I'm going to channel my inner Stefan from Saturday Night Live. Here we go. It's terrible. If you're looking for a crime that only gets stranger by the sentence, have I got a perfect story for you. This one has it all. Creepy cults, fake obituaries, vegans. Sorry for that. Here's the story. On January 20th, 44-year-old Border Patrol agent David Mayland was gunned down during a traffic stop near Vermont's border with Canada. Mayland had stopped a Toyota Prius driven by 21-year-old Teresa Youngblut, who was traveling with a German citizen named Felix Bachholt. Teresa allegedly pulled a gun on Mayland, firing 2 shots, killing Mayland, according to the New York Post. Felix was shot and killed by agents as he attempted to draw his own gun. Teresa survived and was charged with murder. But wait, it gets stranger. Teresa, the person who survived and is charged with murder, was reported missing by her family in Seattle last May. Now, Felix, the guy that's dead in her passenger seat, was a math genius who worked in finance. And they were both members of a cult known as the Zizians, who described themselves as vegan Siths. Siths being the opposite of the Jedi from the Star Wars movies. And the Zizians believe that all human decisions are mathematically quantifiable. Teresa was set to marry 22-year-old Maximilian Snyder, but Snyder was arrested last week for the murder of a witness set to testify in court against the Zizians. But wait, it gets stranger. The gun that Teresa used, allegedly, to kill Mayland was purchased by a woman named Michelle Zazko, who is wanted for the January 2023 shooting deaths of her parents in Pennsylvania. A manhunt is underway to find her. But wait, it gets stranger. The leader of the Zizians cult is a man named Jack Lasoda, a.k.a. Ziz. Lasoda is also wanted by police for skipping an arrest warrant. His supporters say that Lasoda died in 2022, but police believe they faked his obituary. Witnesses saw Lasoda earlier this year living with Felix and others in an Airbnb rental in North Carolina. Long story short, expect about 100 new documentaries about this case. This is going to be the big case, at least in early 2025. If you're not following it, get up to speed. Check this thing out. It is nutty. Last week, when Trump pardoned the domestic terrorists involved in the January 6th insurrection, 36-year-old Andrew Tate must have been very happy. Tate was serving a 6-year sentence at a federal prison in Colorado for assaulting police officers with bear spray during the January 6th attacks. But after Trump's complete and unconditional pardon, Tate was released. And now Houston police are desperately searching for him again. He is wanted for trying to arrange sex with a minor online, according to The Hill. At the time of his arrest for his part in January 6th, he was actively awaiting trial for the sex crime in Texas. The Bureau and prisons should have known about this, but there was some miscommunication, and they simply opened the door for him, and he walked away. This follows the rearrest of another January 6er last week on a weapons charge. Call me crazy, But I'm beginning to think that these guys who tried to overthrow our government and string up Mike Pence, I don't think they're good guys. I think we might have let some bad guys go. I don't know. Maybe. Yesterday, a 40-year-old man was found not guilty of rape in Sydney, Australia, even though he admitted to the attack, according to The Guardian. I'm keeping this guy's name out of this report because of how it shook out, but honestly, I don't know what to think about this one, and I'd love to hear from you about this. Let me explain what happened. This man met a woman at a cocktail bar in Darlinghurst. She returned to his apartment around 1 a.m. They drank some more, and then they took a bath together, all consensual so far. Then they got into bed naked and fell asleep. But around 6 a.m., the woman woke up to find the man having sex with her. She pushed him off and fled the apartment. However, at the trial, the man's lawyers argued that he suffered from sexsomnia, a real disorder that causes people to engage in sex during sleep. They often have no memory that it happened. And nobody, the defense, nobody in court disputed whether the man had sexsomnia. They all agreed he did. So when it went to the jury had to decide whether they thought this man could be held responsible for a crime he committed while technically unconscious. And they decided to let him off. How crazy is that? But I've thought a lot about this. I think if I was on the jury, and this is something I haven't been able to find in any of the reports on this case, the one question I would have is whether the man knew he suffered from sexsomnia prior to the night in question. Because if he did, even if he was not in control of his actions at that time, he knew it was possible and had a responsibility to not fall asleep next to a naked woman. Or to, at the very least, tell her, oh, by the way, I have this crazy thing called sexsomnia. By the way, my aunt used to take Ambien until she discovered that she was sleepwalking to the fridge at night and eating all the cheese. So she did the sensible thing and put a lock on her fridge. She didn't just simply buy more cheese, if you know what I'm saying. So, what a wild week in true crime. There's lots more to come. I've got some cold case updates that you need to hear. Othram has solved another Jane Doe case. Lots to come. I'll be back in 2 and 2 with more true crime this week.
Please hang up and try again.
And we're back with more true crime this week, brought to you by Microsoft Zune. Music the way it wants to be. A West Virginia pharmacist already serving time in prison for running a Ponzi scheme was convicted on Wednesday in the murder of her husband, according to the Associated Press. Natalie Cochran was found guilty of first-degree murder, which carries a maximum sentence of life in prison, for poisoning her husband with insulin in 2019. She apparently murdered him after he started asking questions about their finances. At the time, Natalie was defrauding multiple investors out of millions of dollars by pretending to own 2 businesses with government contracts. She then used most of the money to buy a 1965 Shelby Cobra, 2 properties, and some lovely jewelry. Hey, you know what gets you in more trouble than fraud? Murder. Reporters uncovered a strange twist in a tragic murder this week. Charlton Craig Leigh was charged on Tuesday in the murder of his ex-wife Karen Leigh, who was a well-known realtor from Cleveland, Tennessee, according to News Channel 9. Leigh is accused of going to her home. Yes, that was actually accurate. Leigh is accused of going to his ex-wife's home on Monday night and shooting her to death before handing his gun over to a neighbor and driving away. Police caught up with him a short time later and arrested him immediately. The couple divorced in September, and documents show that Karen had accused him of inappropriate marital conduct. But here's the strange twist that local reporters uncovered. Leiner's father killed his mother in a murder-suicide in 2016. Is it a terrible coincidence, or could there be something genetic going on there? At the very least, it's a little disturbing. FBI agents were seen digging in a ditch this week near the home of a girl who went missing from Tupelo, Mississippi in 1992, according to WLBT. 13-year-old Leigh Occhi disappeared from her home on August 27, 1992. Leigh was left home alone that day while her mother went to work. Her mother, Vicky, got nervous when she heard reports of a major storm caused by Hurricane Andrew that was headed their way. She called home to speak to Leigh, but the girl didn't pick up. Concerned, Vicky drove home to check on her, but when she arrived, she found the garage door open and blood inside, and there was more blood inside Leigh's bedroom, and the girl was gone. Then, a few days after the disappearance, someone mailed a pair of Leigh's glasses to Vicky. But when the FBI tried to get DNA from the stamp, they discovered that whoever sent the package had used water to moisten the stamp. The FBI has not yet said what led them back to the area of the girl's house this week. Hopefully that means they're close to a resolution. Our friends at Othram Labs identified the remains of a Jane Doe found beside a dirt road in Lake County, Florida in the early 1980s, according to WFTV. This is a strange one, too. The body that was found is that of Rebecca Sue Hill, a teenager from Arkansas who went missing in 1981. Now, they might have linked her DNA to this missing teen sooner, but Rebecca's DNA was never put into the national databases because family members had mistakenly identified another set of remains as being hers, not long after she disappeared. So it came as quite a shock to them when police informed them that Rebecca's remains were actually found in Florida and just identified. Police said their lead suspect in the girl's murder is Michael Ronning, a suspected serial killer who died in prison in 2022. Let's jump over to weird news, shall we? An elementary school principal in Florida was charged with delinquency of a minor and child neglect this week after allowing over 100 local teens to have an alcohol and drug-fueled rager at her house, according to USA Today. Elizabeth Hill Brodigan is the principal at Roosevelt Elementary School, or was. She's on paid leave now. Police were called to the house on January 19th after neighbors complained of noise. When they arrived, they found a boy vomiting on the front lawn. The students told police that the party had started around 7:45, and Hill Brodigan asked some of them to help set up. Police found multiple coolers stocked with booze. Students were also smoking marijuana, and one recorded a video of a boy holding a firearm at the party. Hill Brodigan is facing jail time, but has also been voted as best principal ever. The True Crime Book of the Week this week is a new true crime story by acclaimed journalist Kate Winkler Dawson called The Sinners All Bow. Here's the write-up. On a cold winter day in 1832, Sarah Marie Cornell was found dead in a quiet farmyard in a small New England town. When her troubled past and a secret correspondence with charismatic Methodist minister Reverend Ephraim Avery was uncovered, more questions emerged. Was Sarah's death a suicide or something much darker? Determined to uncover the real story, Victorian writer Catherine Reed Arnold Williams threw herself into the investigation as the trial was unfolding and wrote what many claim to be the first American true crime narrative, Fall River. The murder divided the country and inspired Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter. But the Reverend was not convicted, and questions linger to this day about what really led to Sarah Cornell's death. Until In the Sinners All Bow, acclaimed true crime historian Kate Winkler Dawson travels back in time to 19th century small-town America, emboldened to finish the work Williams started nearly 2 centuries before. Using modern investigative advancements, including forensic knot analysis and criminal profiling, which was invented 55 years later with Jack the Ripper, Dawson fills in the gaps of Williams' research to find the truth and bring justice to an unsettling mystery that speaks to our past as well as our present, anchored by 3 women who subverted the script they were given. What a cool idea for a true crime book. I like that a lot. Go check it out. The Sinners All Bow. And that's the story for this week. Hope you liked it. I'll be back next week, same time, same bat channel. And in the meantime, go out and enjoy the world, enjoy the weekend, and in the words of the incomparable Murray Saul, the godfather of Cleveland radio, we gotta Get down, damn it. True Crime This Week is a Fearful Symmetry production. Photo and artwork are licensed through Shutterstock. If you like the cut of my jib, I have another podcast you might enjoy called The Philosophy of Crime, in which I attempt to solve the big questions behind our true crime obsession by looking to philosophy for answers. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next week. Sit, Brownie, sit. Good dog.